Namaste and welcome to FISI's webinar on Farm Bills 2020. The topic for today is resurgence in agriculture and farmer prosperity. For this, we have a very distinguished lineup of guests and speakers. And before I go on to introduce the panelists, let me just tell you about the format. And for those of you who may not know about FISI, FISI or the Friends of India Society International UK is a voluntary organization which is working to strengthen the social, political and economic ties between India and UK. And it's been doing so for the last 4 decades since 1975. The membership body comes across business leaders, professionals, homemakers, and anybody who wants to volunteer time to strengthen the relationship between UK and years. So the session will be started by the main speakers talking about and giving us an overview on what is the need for agricultural reforms, what are the agri reforms which are in contention, and what is the way forward. Each speaker will give his overview for 15 minutes, and we have a guest speaker who will also speak after the 3 main speakers. Then we have a round of question and answers, and we also have room for audience questions, and hence you may put your questions in the comment section and the team will be picking up the questions from there, after which we will be concluding our sessions. So I now introduce my panel, which is a very esteemed panel. Dr. Bhagwati Prakash Sharma is the Vice Chancellor of Gautam Buddha University. Dr. Sharma has been teaching commerce and management and supervising doctoral research since 1978. He's a keen observer of the global trade scene, neoliberal economic policies, internal security, and agri-bioterrorism. Dr. Sharma has participated in the 5th, 6th, and 10th biannual ministerial conferences of the World Trade Organization at Mexico, Hong Kong, and Kenya. Dr. Sharma has been the national co-convener of the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, and he currently serves as the chairperson of the Swadeshi Swavalamban Nyas of SJM. He has authored 14 books, 31 popular monographs, 250 plus articles and research papers. He has organized 32 workshops as well as various international seminars, and has edited 10 books and is the editor-in-chief of monthly periodicals. He has received many reputed awards, including Madan Mohan Malviya Award in 2016 for his contribution in the field of management. Our second speaker is Dr. J.P. Sharma. He is the Vice Chancellor of Sher-e-Kashmir University of Agricultural Sciences and Technology, Jammu. Previously, Dr. Sharma has worked as the Director of Center for Advanced Faculty Training at Agricultural Research Institute, Pusa, New Delhi. He has over 33 years of experience conducting strategic research, teaching postgraduate students, conducting training programs, and carrying out rural development activities in the farmers' field. He has earned his doctoral degree from IIT Delhi and his postgrad from GB Pant University in Pantnagar. He has handled 13 institutional and 20 externally funded research projects. He has to his credit researches in highly relevant topics like assessment, refinement of agricultural technologies, peri-urban agriculture and entrepreneurship, development, and he has conducted all this as part of externally funded projects from reputed national and international organizations. He has substantially contributed for developing entrepreneurship in agriculture, for creating farm and non-farm based employment opportunities in rural society. He has published 106 research papers in reputed journals, 283 popular articles in magazines and newspapers, and 51 books and 60 book chapters. He's a member of many professional, national, and international committees and has been invited as expert for planning commissions, Vigyan Bharati, and in many other places. He has received more than 60 awards or recognition, including the Best Agriculture Extension Science Award. And he has also received the Dr. G.S. Vidyarthi Award for making outstanding contribution to the farming community. We also have Sri Dinesh Kulkarni ji, who is the organizing secretary of Bharatiya Kisan Sangh, which is also known as BKS, and it's the India's biggest farmers organization for the farmers, by the farmers, and of the farmers. It's not affiliated or connected to any political party, but it was formed solely for the purpose of the upliftment of the farmers of India. Dinesh ji is also a postgraduate in the agricultural field and has been working for the welfare of farmers since 1992. Dinesh ji has been actively involved in various activities, including the survey done on the farmer's suicide and the root cause analysis, cost of production method, and further evolvement. Dinesh ji has been actively involved in various farming policies. Our guest tonight is Dr. Shri Gurucharan Singh Gill. He is an eminent lawyer and social worker. He's an ex-trade union leader, chairman of the Legal Aid Committee of the 1984 Blue Star victims. He is an educationist, religious scholar, and thinker. Shri Gill is national president, Rashtriya Sikh Sangat, an organization which has always played a leading role in redressing social, religious, economic, and security issues concerning the Sikh community. Shri Gill was chairman of many well-known and reputed educational institutes, including the reputed Shri Guru Nanak Shiksha Samiti in Bharatpur. He has been working for the welfare of society in various educational, labor, and religious fields. He is a human rights activist and has won many awards. He has published many papers on legal aspects and most recently authored a book on Shri Guru Gobind Singh Ji on the occasion of the 350th celebrations. So I extend a hearty welcome to all my esteemed guests and speakers. And I begin the session by inviting Dr. Bhagwati Prakash Sharma ji to give his overview on the agricultural reforms, the need for it, the the laws, as well as what the way forward is in his opinion. Namaskar, Dr. Bhagwati Prakash Sharma ji.
All the respected fellow speakers and esteemed office bearers and volunteers of Friends of India Society, UK. India has been endowed with largest arable land, and at present around 6 crore hectares of land is irrigated. Otherwise, we have 18 crore hectares of arable land. The water going waste in the ocean without being utilized is somewhere around 20 crore hectare meters, and if that is properly utilized, we can irrigate at least 14 to 15 crore hectares. That is 140 to 150 million hectares of land. In that case, India shall be able to feed almost 2/3 of the global population, and India can become a food power. At present also, we have almost around 3 crore tons of food grain surplus. And even at times, potato, tomato, many crops had to be disposed of for wastage. For instance, Uttar Pradesh is the largest potato producing area. And it has almost 3.5 million tons of potato surplus over and above the consumption and seed demand of the people of Uttar Pradesh. And if we have to improve the lives of farmers, we have to improve their incomes. We cannot raise the prices of the crops because even if the price of rice or wheat would increase by 2 rupees per kilogram, there would be a lot of resistance due to price inflation. And therefore, if we have to augment the income of the farmers, and almost 50% of the India's population is dependent upon agriculture, and if we have to make them prosperous, we have to make the farmers part of the food system. That is, if they would be selling the wheat, they cannot get even 1 or 2 rupees per kilogram more. But if they would be converting it into flour, maida, suji, cake, pastry, bread, etc. Likewise for potato chips, tomato sauce. So if zero technology and low technology industries can be relocated in rural areas, and by any mode, maybe farmer producer organization, or maybe through farmers cooperatives, producer cooperatives, any other rural village cooperatives, agri cooperatives, any mode has to be employed to make the farmers part of the food system, and this can augment. And now, as I have already pointed out, that India can become a food power and can feed at least 4 billion to 5 billion global humanity, and therefore we have to enhance the export potential. We have to, if we have to do the value addition activities, the produce should be compliant with the international standard norms, packaging, branding, etc. Everything, grading, standardization, everything would be required. The Agri-Produce Marketing Cooperatives Act was brought when the farmers of country were almost 90% were illiterate. There was no ICT revolution. Now today every farmer is having a smartphone, and he can assess the prices prevalent in various markets for various crops. there is good literacy. Even farmers are well now. A large number of farmers and their sons and daughters are well educated. So at that time, when farmers were being exploited out of their illiteracy by the middleman, and often they used to buy their crop in return for the loans they used to extend to the farmer in hardships, and therefore government made it mandatory that every crop can be sold only in the yard of the Krishi Mandis, agriculture cooperative agriculture markets, and that should be through open auction. So every trader, whatever stock he was displaying, he was required to display the receipt that he has purchased from open auction from the agri markets. Now, at present, I think farmers are also well informed. They are having almost information about all the markets of the country. That is number one. Now, eNAM, e-marketing portal has also been launched, and we expect farmers to sell their produce to the portals also. And even nowadays, there are vast number of engineering graduates from rural areas. If they go to their places and if they think of establishing some value addition enterprise, maybe some rural enterprise, for converting the agri produce into value added products, then he has to buy. So this mandate that agri crops can be sold only on the yards of the Krishi Mandis, then farmers shall have to take the produce to the Krishi Mandi, then that a small entrepreneur has to buy it from there. So it would be very cumbersome these days. And just say, for example, in industry also, we have done away with the license quota permit Raj, and now industry is also unshackled. Likewise, if the farmer is also unshackled and he is nowadays well informed, and the way they are interpreting the new laws and the way they are articulating their apprehensions about the new laws, we can well understand that today the farmers are in a position to take care of their interests, large number of farmers. And therefore, I think for three purposes. That is number one, to give freedom to the farmer to sell his produce anywhere. If a farmer of turmeric has to sell his turmeric outside Andhra anywhere, then he should be free. He can sell it by any mode. That is number one. Now, if somebody establishes say turmeric is just 80 or 100 rupees per kilogram, if somebody converts into curcumin, it becomes 100 times valuable. And therefore, I think open space has to be provided. And therefore, this bill of dismantling the compulsion to sell the agri produce only on the yards of the Krishi Mandis was done away. Likewise, now actually this Essential Commodities Act, that also has been created hurdles in the way of many genuine traders. Often, sometimes false cases are implicated, and therefore, and whenever there would be undue hoarding or undue any sort of black marketing of any crop, then government can intervene. So I think that is also, I think, need of the hour. So particularly at this juncture, when farmers are being unshackled to sell their crops anywhere, and therefore these three bills have been invoked by the government. Likewise, if the third thing, which is about contract farming, no doubt it has a gray area. The earlier, when in 2002 or 3, when APMC law was amended, at that time, that contract farming provisions were totally one-sided. They were only in the favor of corporates. There was no safeguard for the farmers. Now, there are two things. There is one gray area. For example, even still today, with all these laws, government has allowed large buyers, bulk buyers, to have their private Krishi Mandis. And therefore, large number of corporates who are buying in the bulk, they have been establishing the. Now, what happens? A small trader or a small manufacturer cannot buy the crop directly from the farmer. But large, say for example, Cargill. Cargill, when it entered and it brought its Nature Fresh flour in India, They hired almost around more than 1,000 hectares of land in Madhya Pradesh. They established many flour mills, which led to the closure of large number of roller flour mills and atta chakkis and all these things. And now there is a gray area that if Kargil has hired the land, the landowner has become sharecropper instead of landowner. Now he takes the seed from the Kargil, he cultivates the land for that company, then he sells that crop at a certain remuneration for his labor, and they just convert it into flour in their own flour mills. So there is a question that right from farmland to kitchen, the entire food supply chain may fall in the hands of the large foreign multinationals, maybe for tomato sauce, maybe for potato chips, maybe for various products. And therefore, a safeguard has to be exercised, and so that already about 3/4 of the manufacturing sector of India is in the hand of foreign multinationals, and they are just running only assembly lines. In India, the industry is also assembled right from mobile phone to metro trains. Every product is being assembled. There are no original equipment manufacturing in the downstream value chain. So no doubt, in industry also, this has led to an undesirable situation. Likewise, if our food system, and if right from farmland to the kitchen, if the food supply chains for various products falls into the foreign multinationals, then a question may arise: who would own the means of production, including the agriculture system or food system? So there has to be some safeguards. But at the same time, there are very small players who are making various value-added products. And it is my personal opinion that if we ensure that no raw crop produce goes out of the village, if in a cluster of say 10, 20, 30 villages, some value addition, low technology or zero technology industries are established, and if they are converted into various food products, value added products, then I think we can develop the villages, we can augment the income in the rural area. There can be rural industries, and almost 50% of the people are dependent on various other avenues of employment. So for integrated rural development, somewhere we have to ensure that we have these value addition ventures in the rural areas, maybe in the form of farmer producer organization or in various other modes. And we also may think of cooperatives on the pattern of Amul, or we can think of smaller village level cooperatives, or there can be some experiments. So there has to be dismantling of the present laws, because now the farmer has been emancipated, and if we have to augment the income of almost 50% of the people, and the farmer's income would be augmented, then he would be making purchases of various manufactured goods, maybe a mixer or maybe a fan or maybe a coat or anything. So ultimately this would drive the demand for manufactured goods, and agriculture can become engine of growth for the entire economy if we can properly steer these various new provisions. So there has to be one safeguard, that there is no monopoly, oligopoly, duopoly, or even there is any concentration of these value addition ventures. So some provision has to be made for decentralized manufacturing or decentralized value addition of agri-produce. And at the same time, we also have to take that players in the rural industry should be such that they can do branding, grading, standardization, and environmental laws, sanitary and phytosanitary measures also have to be taken care of for access into markets. Even today, India has the largest number of organic cultivators. Australia has the largest area under organic cultivation. But I think today the whole world is in demand of organic food. And therefore, if some proper initiatives are taken, by unshackling the farmer from his compulsion to sell his produce only in the agri-produce markets, and if that farmer is, I think, is linked with the food system, then only I think we feel that a farmer can be made richer, prosperity can be brought, and at the same time, we also have to go for, because often Indian tea, where companies are cultivating, they also used to have high residues of insecticides, and in Europe, many times their consignments were rejected. Even many times the consignments of squashes and jams were rejected in the Europe, simply when the azo dyes were being used in the printing of the labels. That was no reason, but countries are quite whimsical to protect the home industry. So therefore, the players who would be running these industries in the rural areas and who would be exporting the produce, they should also comply with the sanitary and phytosanitary measures. So we have to use a blend that neither the total food supply chain goes into the large corporates, whether domestic or and there should be a decentralized value addition of agriculture crops, and farmers should be made part of the food system through various cooperative ventures. So this should be in the mind. I think I'm completing my time. At the end, I would be just adding one thing, that if these bills are allowed for some time, and if there, because if 50% of the people are farmers, no government can become immune to the worries of the farmers or anger of the farmer. So I think the government would be sensitive enough that as and when the farmers would be exploited or any such untoward happening would take place, I think the government would be having option to intervene. With this, I conclude my deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Sharma. That was a very insightful overview, and it's given us a better understanding of what is happening and how things work, and especially the food supply chain that you spoke about, how that should not go into the hands of the large corporations is something that we need to be careful about. Now, I invite Dr. J.P. Sharma ji, who is joining us from Jammu. Sir, please give your views on this subject. One second, Dr. Sharma, you have to unmute. I will just, if you press the unmute. Maybe there is a request for you to unmute. If you just click on that.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
So, respected Professor Bhagavati Prakash ji, Dinesh Kulkarni ji, Gurcharan Singh ji. First of all, I would like to congratulate the farmers of the country. I have seen during this COVID period, everything failed, but our farmers made us proud, and they ensured that no citizen of the country goes to bed without having 2-3 times of their food. I congratulate them, and also the policymakers and the scientists, how they worked during this period. And we have seen that there was a negative growth in almost all the sectors, but agriculture still was having 3.4% growth during this period. So it is a matter of pride. Another thing, if we see the agriculture scenario in the country, we are having 85% or more than 85% in our country small or marginal farmers. A sizable number of the farmers, more than 20% of the farmers are having only 200 square meter of land. If we see the agriculture in international context, we are having only 2.4% of world land and 4.2% of world water. And with this 2.4% of the land, we are feeding 18% of the world population. It is a matter of pride. And not only that, 76 million tons of our grains are in our godowns. And now we are not talking much about production, but surplus management is another term now which we are using. Why surplus management? Because as Professor Bhagwati Prakash was telling, our storage capacity is only 11%. If we are producing 100 quintals, we can store it safely only 11%. And that to 11%, 98% of that 11% is single commodity occupied, that is potato. So as a result, we are wasting 15 to 20% after harvesting. Post-harvest losses in case of grains is 15 to 20%. Flowers, vegetable, horticulture crops, sometimes it goes 30%, 40%, 50%. And this wastage is more than the production of many countries. So that is one of the most important issue, that growth in the production is only 2.9% or 3%, wastage is 15 to 20%. So now focus is not on the production, but how to safely store it. And in that context, one of the important major input is processing and value addition. If we see in our country, processing is only, value addition is only 7%. And in case of vegetable, it is only 2%. When we compare this figure with other countries, they are having 72%, in Philippines 74%, in other countries, Malaysia even 80%, US also 72%. Many countries, processing and value addition is more than 70%, but in our country, it is only 7%. As a result, we are wasting a large portion of our product. That's why we are talking about surplus management. Another thing, now focus is changing from production to profitability, as Professor Saab was also telling. Sometimes increase in the production doesn't increase the profitability, and sometimes it even decreases the profitability of the farmers. So focus is not the production, but how to increase the income of the farmers. Government of India set a target by 2022-23, we have to double the income of the farmers. I tell you from this platform, not only double, we can make it 4 times, even 6 times, even sometimes 10 times. But it is not possible by the traditional crops which we are growing, rice, wheat, sugarcane. It is not possible. Now we are talking diversification in agriculture, commercialization of agriculture. Agriculture, which was a way of life earlier, need to be converted into a dynamic entity, that is agribusiness. That is another thing. The third thing which I consider most important to increase the income of the farmers, not from MSP and other things, I'm talking from the existing system even, that is marketing. We have conducted a study at Indian Agriculture Research Institute, and we found that the share of producer and consumer rupees only 23%, and more than 70% is going to the non-producer. There is a large chain from production system to consumption system. Can we reduce it? That is another important point. And considering this thing, Government of India has launched a very prestigious program, nationwide program, ENAM, Electronic National Agriculture Marketing. And to my greatest satisfaction, I want to share that now 1.6 crores of the farmers are benefiting from this system. They are participating through ENAM, their marketing. 1,000 mandis have been interlinked through this system, and 1.5 lakhs traders are also participating in this, and a large volume of the business is taking place from this platform. So that is another thing. Now coming to these bills, the first thing is that MSP and APMC. Major discussion point is this: APMC is going to be there. MSP will be also their highest level. It has been made very clear that these things will exist. Now what has been offered, it is an option, another choice. And it is a law of economics. When there is a monopoly of one buyer, you cannot compete, you cannot bargain. So beside APMC and MSP, we have given another option are being offered to the farmers. They can sell their produce at the farm gate. They can sell it from the cold storage. Even the farmers can form a society, cooperative society, and if they have the PAN number, they can also sell it. Farmers can also have farmer producer organization. This is another important aspect the government has initiated, farmer producer organization. And we have contemplated by next 5 years, 10,000 farmer producer organizations will be there. And I want to highlight also, to support this kind of activities, government has launched Atmanirbhar Bharat. It is a big step. I have never seen in my life such a big step for the welfare of the farmers, for commercialization, diversification, and agribusiness. Under this, 1 lakh crores rupees allocation has been made for infrastructure development to reduce the wastage of the food, constructing the cold storage, developing the cool chain, 1 lakh crores rupees, and developing the farmer producer organization, startups. Another 10,000 crores rupees has been allocated for micro enterprise promotions. 20,000 crores rupees has been allocated for Prime Minister Matsya Development Yojana, fisheries development. Another 15,000 crores for dairy development, 4,000 crores for herbal promotion, 500 crores for beekeeping promotion, 500 crores from top to total vegetation, and all this. So it is, we should not see these bills in isolation. It has to be seen in the government priorities, Atmanirbhar Bharat. And this I have made. Then another benefit for the farmers, as Professor Sabha was telling, free trade, no trade boundaries. Any farmer from any part of the country
I think we've lost connection with Dr. JP Sharma. Yes, I think we lost connection with him. Dr. JP Sharma, can you hear us? You'll have to unmute again. You're muted. I think the connection had dropped. You will have to unmute again. We'll send you a request.
He is in meeting, but he.
Can you unmute once the request is sent? A request might have come to you saying, please unmute. You just have to unmute. There might be a request saying, asking you to unmute. Yes, thank you.
Okay, madam. So I was just discussing about that these bills need not to be seen in isolation. It has to be seen in the context of Atmanirbhar Bharat. And also, if you see the National Education Policy 2020, here the major focus has been given on the vocational education. In our country, the vocational education is only 5%. If we compare with other countries like South Korea, 96% vocational education. America, 80% vocational education. In many countries, it is vocational education. In Germany, 85% vocational education. So now this policy, Education Policy 2020, is also aligning in this context. Now we have set a target by 2025. We have to develop this vocational education by 35%, and so like that, ultimately this vocational education in our system will go up to 80%. And when we talk of the vocational education, agriculture is a single subject which offers highest opportunities for self-employment and entrepreneurship development, because it directly gives 43% employment and it contributes 17% of our GDP. So these are the things. And when we talk of this contact farming, I think it is a game changer. Why it is a game changer? I have already discussed that our farmers are small and marginal. I am working in Jammu. It has a different topography, different climatic conditions. There are areas which are called dry areas. in these areas, farmers are having only average 1 acre of land. In these areas, there are a possibility of herbal plants like lavenders, aloe vera, many herbal plants can be grown, and some farmers are also growing. But because of this problem of marketing, they are not able to switch on for those kind of enterprises. If they are assured that there is some person who is going to buy that product, they can go for that. And the company or the private investment will only come when they are assured that that much of quantity they are going to get. So if it is not there, that industry will not invest. So they have to be assured that, okay, 5 million tons, 2 million tons produce you will be getting. So it is a win-win situation for the farmers and also for the businessmen or the industry. So if they can go for turmeric cultivation, they don't know how to process it, where to sell it. If they grow lavender, how to process it. And even lemongrass, farmers, some of the farmers are growing and they are discontinuing because they are not able to extract oil and other essence oils. So what is happening if these contact farming, earlier also it was there. It is already in operation in 18 states of the country, but it is in most form, it is informal. But what we have done in this bill, we have strengthened and formalized the contact farming. Here I give you one example. Earlier in informal farming, contact farming, some company has asked the farmers to grow aloe vera. The farmers have grown, but the company was getting aloe vera from different sources at the cheaper rate, and then they did not purchase the farmer's produce. And then what the farmer will do? Now it is the binding on the part of the industry that they have to honor the contract. It is again in the favor of farmers. They can diversify their products, they can go for high value crops because they are assured that there is a person who is going to buy their product. So in my opinion, these things are going to help the farmers when they are implemented in a right manner. And I think we further need to create awareness about these bills. There is a, I think, trust deficit or maybe misinformation. Otherwise, I don't find, because MSP, APMC, they are going to stay. We are giving another option. If they want to stick to MSP and APMC, they can go there. But if they are able to get better prices elsewhere, they should opt for them. And similarly, that contact farming is again not a compulsion. If you don't want, you don't go for it. But if you feel that it is a beneficial, and then earlier problem was that one has to go to court. But now the cases of conflict will be sorted out at the subdivisional magistrate level. It is again a benefit for the farmers. So to my mind, all these three bills are in the favor of farming community, and these bills are also being supported by the government scheme which is known as Atmanirbhar Bharat. And if they are implemented in a right way, it will not only increase the income of the farmers by double, it may increase even more times. Importantly, I will again want to repeat, processing, value addition, and marketing are most important in today's context. A small farmer who is having 1 acre of land, even they increase the production by 20%, their income is not going to increase. And these will support business, convert the agriculture into agribusiness. It is at the benefit of the farmers community. It is my conviction.
Thank you so much, Dr. JP Sharma ji. It was again very revealing. I am from Jammu, so I especially enjoyed your input on Jammu. And I think what you said about that 2.4% of land, that is what we have, and we are feeding 18% of the world population, is something that is mind-boggling. It is amazing, and I'm glad that you also brought the positive side of it. That even during the pandemic time, agriculture, there has been some growth and we have food on our plates. So it is a credit to the farmers. I have lots of questions, but I'll come back when we do the question and answer round. Now I invite Dinesh Kulkarni ji for his views on this. Dinesh Kulkarni ji.
Namaskar. Today's in this webinar, Honorable Professor Bhagwati Prakash ji, Dr. J.P. Sharma ji, Gurucharan Singh Gill ji from Jaipur, and the all organizers of the FEC, and those who are on live program, I say namaste to all of you. I will take one opportunity to introduce Bharatiya Kisan Sangh to all of you in 1 minute. Bharatiya Kisan Sangh was founded by eminent thinker Shri Dattopant Thengdi ji, who also founded Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh and Swadeshi Jagaran Manch in 1979. And since 1979, Bharatiya Kisan Sangh is working by the farmer, of the farmer, for the farmer, a non-political organization. It has now near about 30 lakhs membership all over India, and presence in 500 plus districts of all states of our country. With this brief introduction, I will just give some my observations regarding these 3 Farm Trading Acts. Most of the things covered by our Bhagwati Prakash ji and Dr. J.P. Sharma ji. These bills were introduced in Parliament. Before that, on the 5th June, they promulgated as a ordinance. The 3 bills are, that is, one is in a simple language we can say, the One Nation, One Market, another one is the Contract Farming, and third one is the Essential Commodity Acts Amendment. The 2 are the new acts and one is the amendment. What my previous speakers told is very correct. After this green revolution, there is a huge transformation regarding the agriculture produce in India. And now we are the surplus production in some produces, just like wheat, rice. These are the main 2 commodities where we are producing very much surplus, but we are deficiting in oil seed as well as the pulses. The Indian farmers know how to produce it, but he does not know how to sell it. And that is he loser in the market. And this is not the today's situation, but it is from the beginning it is happening. The APMCs wherein APMCs created to give the justice to the farmers, but that is also becoming a very bad dream for them, because the APMCs are not working as per their expectations. So the farmers want to get some another way to sell his produce in the market. And as a Bharatiya Kisan Sangh also, we are in favor of open markets. We were asking from the long time there should be the open market. In that open market, the government procurement should be there. Then APMCs like the regulated market should be there. Private players with cooperative societies of the farmers or the any other cooperative society, just like the Amul, that example has been given to us. So this type of the open market system definitely give the opportunity to farmers to sell his produce, which will get his good prices for his produce. But this type of the farm acts are not coming now. There is a long procedure behind it, we can see. It is having a long history since the WTO's formation era. At that time, there was a agreement on agriculture was there, and in agreement on agriculture, these developed countries were pressurizing the all underdeveloped countries to open their markets. That point was made by our Bhagwati Prakashji. And since 2002-3, the then UPA government and another NDA government and this today's government also trying to amend these APMCs and give some relaxation to the farmers. But thanks to our political situations in India, these are not taken in that spirit, and so many states were not responded it rightly. There are so many issues regarding the APMCs with the farmers, and we want to resolve this with this type of some amendments or the reforms in the APMCs, but that was not happen. Some states overacted, or some states acted in accordance with. Just like if you look towards the Bihar, they abolished all APMCs there. There is no APMCs in Kerala. And if you look towards the Maharashtra has given permission for the private market committees. So this type of the varied situation is there, but some amendments are there. Now, prior to this act, farmers can sell their produce anywhere in country, but he has to sell his produce in APMC only. That was the only condition at that time. In that regard, when we are thinking about this act, this type of the opening of the market is there. It's a good thing, but some conditions should be there for this type of, because there is a fear in the mind of the farmer is that if the APMCs are abolished and government is giving assurance of the APMC, but that APMC, the MSP, central government is procurement is going on at the MSP, but the government is procuring for their PDS system, public distribution system, and for the strategic sale only, strategic buffer stock, and that is benefited to only 6 to 7% of the farmers. If you go in the Assam, Bengal, or the Odisha Prant, these farmers don't know about any government procurement. They do not know about the MSP, so they are not the benefited. That is the main fear in the mind of the farmers. When this type of the open market will be there, for some time these big players in the market, they will procure their produce at a higher prices, then APMCs will be collapsed, and there will be monopoly of this type of the system. So there should be assurance is required to the farmers that their produce should not be sold below the MSP, because this is the main thrust of this total agitation is there. After the enactment of these 2-3 laws, you can observe that in only October and November month, there is a distressed sale of whole agriculture produce within 2 months of the 30 markets of the country, that goes up to the 1900 crore rupees. So this is the huge loss to the farming businesses. That's why what I told previously, that our farmers are very much clever in production, but they are much failure in the sales. And that is why when we conducted the survey regarding the suicides, that was the main reason behind that. The cost of production is going up and up. That is not in control of farmers, and the farmers are not getting the remunerative prices for their produce. So that type of some arrangement should be there. Government is declaring and government is procuring, government is giving assurance, that is the correct. But there should be some legalized mechanism to assure the MSP to the farmers. That type of some amendments, that is the main amendment to be done in this type of the acts. Other are the amendments are that regarding the registration of the farmers, then agriculture codes, that can be done. But this is the main thing we have to look after this one. Now I will put my observation regarding what agitation is going near Delhi's border. When this ordinance or these acts were there, at that time some political parties opposed this. I will not consider the opposition from the political leaders, because they are changing their words at each and every time as per their convenience. But when we are talking about the farmers, at this beginning, at the initial stage, the farmers were only demanding regarding this type of the amendment in this type of the acts. But now that demand has been changed to repealing this type of the 3 laws. And this repealing of the laws will not benefit to the farmers in any situation. So amendment should be there. And now this type of the repealing demand is coming from the farmer. It is not in the interest of the farmers as well. But now what has happened with this agitation, this is the farmers' agitation, it's true. But the leadership of this agitation is not in the hands of the farmers now. That's why after the ending of the 11th talk, government has come down, and now the government is ready to suspend all these laws for 1.5 years, and that's a very good opportunity for farmers to rethink about things and come forward with the other solution. Because the open market is the one thing, but so many issues are related with the agricultural sector that we have to resolve. Because now there is an imbalance of the production of some products. We are not self-sufficient in the oil seed. We are not self-sufficient in the pulses. There is a problem of the value addition or the losses up to 30%. Then climatic changes are there. So many issues are interrelated with each other. So we have to resolve these all issues. This type of the opportunities given by the government that we have to take in our hand, and we have to resolve all these issues regarding the agriculture. But those who are now in the leadership of this farmers' agitation, they do not want to resolve these all issues. They want to just oppose all these things. And as the communists are mainly behind these all things, and they are getting the support from the outside the country as well. Some another elements are also there. They are also supporting this with their own vested interest. They are not in favor of the farmers' solution. And these are due to that, this type of the agitation is becoming very, taking a very dangerous turn regarding our national interest. So we have to think about this also. There is this type of, these farmers are getting the support from UK as well as the Canada as well. In the initial stage, the Canadian Prime Minister also supported, I think, he was taking care of his own vote bank. I don't know what exactly reason behind it, but some 36, 37 MPs from the UK also supported all this agitation. So these things are happening. It is totally our internal problem. We will have this discussion. We will fight with our government for our amendment or what we want to do with that act. But it is totally the problem of the Indian society within the country, need not to interfere any other persons in that regard. But I think these all issues are related with the world market as well. And that's why that market forces may be behind it. So to tackle all these issues into more confused state. So these type of the things are happening in this, but the repealing of this type of the act is not the solution for all that things. That is our well thought opinion regarding all these things. When we are talking about the way forward, so what point was made by Dr. J.P. Sharma ji and Bhagwati ji, it is very much true, because 86% of the farmers are the small and marginal farmers. They have a very little surplus to sell into the market. That's why when we are thinking to give the open market for these farmers, it is better to develop the weekly marketing system nearby his village. That is a very much needed reform is required. And for that, in 2 years back, our Honorable Finance Minister declared one scheme to strengthen the 22,000 markets, update and upgrade of them. So that will be a very good move if that is, and this all infrastructure fund which is given in this COVID period, that is a 1 lakh crore rupees. If we spend for this type of the infrastructure development, that will definitely help to the 86% of the small and marginal farmers. The another thing is also come into the discussion, that is the value addition at the farm level. That is needed. And when we are talking about the contract farming, this contract farming is basically looking for the backward integration. And that type of the backward integration will not benefit to the farmers. Farmers will be benefited with the forward integration. Means what produce the farmers are having, we have to process it and we have to sell into the market after that. That will benefit more to the farmers rather than the backward integration. So we have to think about that. The Amul is the very good example for that. And that type of the forward integration we have to develop at each and every farm produces. Another thing is that we have to shift our focus where we are now in surplus. We are now self-sufficient in the staple foods. We are more than self-sufficient in the sugar. We have to change the focus from production to the nutrition. And that nutrition, what world is required. Now the focus of the world is also changing. Due to the health consciousness and due to this COVID period also, the whole world is looking for this type of the organic food, this type of the healthy food, this type of the nutritious food. And fortunately, our Bharat is having the high biodiversity. We are having the numerous types of the staple food varieties, and we can market them. So we have to give more attention towards this type of the nutritional food crops, fruits, vegetables. And if we are having the processing at the farm level, then definitely there will be good scope for Indian agriculture in that regard. So this is my submission regarding this three laws. And thanks for the giving me opportunity to express my views in this webinar. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.
Thank you, Dinesh ji. Again, lots to learn and lots to take note of. And I think the fact that there is this repetition of that we are producers, but our farmers are not sellers. This is a very important factor to understand a lot of things. Now, I invite our guest, Sri Gurcharan Singh Gill ji, to give his comments.
Respected Bhagwati ji, Sharma ji, Dinesh ji, Ma'am Khajuria ji, and respected organizers of this webinars, Sat Sri Akal. Bhagwati ji, while highlighting on the salient feature of these bills and act, rather they become act at present, also make us conscious about the interception of the multinationals. They know very well because he is working in the Swadeshi Jagran for a long time. So how the multinational put impact on the common man, they also wanted. I want to add on this point only that food processing industry is so hyper technical for which the multinationals are required. Why the government can't establish a focal point with the 10-kilometer radius in each area where they may establish the cold storage, where they may put the training for the food processing through ITI, etc. And they may provide other facility of banking, etc. in that focal area, that the farmers may rise their productions and they may convert into sellable, marketable things rather to raw food only. Second is another, there is a scope of herbal cultivation also. In each geographical index area, there may be herbal plants may be so, and the government also adopted that the FPOs, but practically should be implemented those suggestions and that the provisions made therein. Why the farmers should not sow the herbal cultivation should be done to increase their income. Horticulture is also a sector where the income may be increased. For that is also not any multinational required. Why not when we thinking of Atmanirbhar Bharat, we should develop the technology of the farmers so that, and that is not so sensitive that they can't learn it. Our farmers are more learned than the sometimes the expert, so-called expert in the agriculture university, etc. They know how will be the weather, what should be so, and they know all the technical things. So it is a need of the hour that focal point system should be adopted and government should develop infrastructure so that the farmers increase their, and multinationals intervention should be avoided to save the farmer and India both. As per the Mr. J.P. Sharma is concerned, he provided me an opportunity to feel proud of that the having 2.4% of the land of the world, we are feeding 18%. But I pose a question to myself, even then farmer is, why he is going to commit suicide? For what? He is providing food to 80% of the world population, but even then he can't provide ample opportunity of education, well, good standard of living to their own family. That should be seen. Atmanirbhar Bharat is a very good concept, and I honor that I have gone through the salient feature of that. But practical that should be implemented so that the Atmanirbhar Bharat may start with from the villagers. Earlier, I have to went to the village, and I saw that even for a long time the farmers are struggling for their bread and butter only. They are not in a position to provide a luxurious life to their children or a good opportunity of learning or education, etc., to their children. So that should be also seen. As per Kulkarni is concerned, he is very his director from this field, Kisan Sangh, and he has warned us and also gave very good suggestions in that regard. So my few suggestions are, I come to the direct to the points. As per the Farmer Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act 2020 is concerned, there is a objection to the farmer about that there will be a jurisdiction of the civil court is divided under section 15. For that, my submission is we may amend this act, we may repeal this section 15, and we may add another provision that in the addition we may add the wording. I have also sent in writing also that in the alternative, farmer may approach the tribunal constituted under section 15, which shall act in consonance to the power of procedure laid down. So my suggestion is there should be a tribunal by chairperson is a judicial member or presiding officer, one from the farmer producers member and one from the APMCs. 3 members tribunal should be constituted. And also my suggestion is, as per the MSP is concerned, there is very good provision made in this act about in the section 4(3) that the payment of the product of the farmers shall be made on the same day or at the most in the 3 days. Otherwise, there are penal provision in section 11 also, which may be from 25,000 to 5 lakhs. So it is very surety given to the farmers for their payment. But one subsection will also be added that no, I have written that no trader shall purchase the farmer's produce at the rate lower than the MSP. Why we should not add this provision to assure it? And we should also make a provisions in the section 15. I have given even also this session that how the section 15 the tribunal will be constituted. May I read the words what I suggested? The state government shall constitute a tribunal in each district having 1 judicial member, a chairman, and 2 members, 1 from FPO Farmer Cooperative Society and 1 member APMC board. Tribunal may pass on award by majority. Dispute could not be resolved unanimously. Tribunal shall have all the power to execute this award and may pass a sentence for non-compliance in addition to penalty described in section 11, which may extend to 1 year but not less than 3 months. If this provision is added, then tribunal is given power. It is left open to the farmer whether he approach to the SDO or he may approach to the tribunal. So what are the objections of the farmer that will be resolved by simply amending 1, 2, 3 section? Second part is the another act is the Farmer Producers Promotion and Facilitation Act. In this section, we also add certain things by which we may amend. As for the APMC is concerned, there is no reason to think that APMC will be got nullified because trade area has already been decided which exclude the APMC and private yard also. So by brothers, farmers should be assured that APMC will function. If they are required to go to the APMC, they may go. If they go to the contract farming, they have the option for them. That is not mandatory for them to go to the contract farming. It is optional. But also I would like to suggest there that there should certain states as Rajasthan and Punjab made of the provisions. And if there is an agreement with the farmers under contract farming, there should be also that no product will be purchased below than MSP. Then the MSP may be assured. But another thing is in my mind, what is the MSP? Earlier, to adjust according to Swaminathan reports, actually that was a commission, Kisan Ayog, later because headed by the Swaminathan on the second part. Firstly, Somnath was the chairman. This commission was constituted by the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government. Later on, when the UPA government came, this commission was headed by Swaminathan. Swaminathan was talking about the comprehensive cost of the agriculture produce. But now we have changed only the actual expenses incurred by the farmers. So that should be changed. And while we decide the MSP, for that a commission, dependent commission having a statutory powers and a statutory existence should be amended. And so that should be formed. I have given a suggestion for that, that a commission for determining cost and price of agricultural produce. And for that, in the Act Empower and Production Act of 2020, there should be added chapter 3A, in which that commission will consider the capital involved for production of the agricultural produce, including the cost of land, agricultural implement, storage, etc., depreciation of the land, implement on the buildings. Third, there should be change in the cost of Manrega, increase in the cost of transportation, price hike of the fuel, electricity, manure and insecticide, risk factor like weather and climate, and change in subsidy policy of the government. All these should be taken into consideration for deciding the minimum support price, because at present minimum support price is not sufficient to double the income of the farmers. So in addition to earlier my suggestion related to herbal cultivation, etc., and all these things, food processing industries, etc., even for the wheat and the rice, etc., or any other crop for the which the Kisan sow, there should be system, scientific system with having power. Because now it is in with the government to decide all the things. No commission have the power of the statutory provision under its act, and those have not constituted under any law. So under law, there should be constituted a tribunal which should decide the cost of the product, and that should be declared as the minimum support price. So these are my suggestions. So I try to conclude in my limited time. So thanks to all organizers and all the speakers, panelists. Lot of thanks. Sat Sri Akal.
Thank you so much, Guru Charan Gilji. It's a learning experience for all of us also to hear all your views, because I am part of that audience which might not be technical experts on the subject of farmers, but we are concerned with what is happening with farmers in India, and the fact that they are protesting, and the fact that we as common people or people who are not into farming do feel that the agricultural reforms are much needed. So I will start the question and answer round. And as I said, I come from that part of the audience which is not necessarily a technical expert. So these are questions which are coming to most of us. So I begin by asking Professor Bhagwati Sharma ji. There is a clear understanding that the open market is for interstate and intrastate agri-trade, and it's expected to be created by these farm bills, and it will bring a freedom of choice for farmers. And so will this creation of additional channels, as the legislation allows farmers to sell produce directly to any buyer, as opposed to restricting them to the local mandis, not result in better market linkages and efficient supply chains? Will it not lead to a higher prices and increased farmer incomes, which is what the ultimate aim is? And along with this, what do you think of the agri-tech startups? Because we are hearing this repetitively, that we know how to produce, but we don't know how to sell. So do the agri-tech startups have a very key role to play, and will these farm bills positively impact them? Professor Sharma.
Actually, whether it is the agri-tech startup or it is any corporate entity, it will have to have some contract or some arrangement with the producers, because as JP Sharma ji has also pointed out, there are small producers, and therefore any person, say if he wants to sell curcumin in the UK market, or he wants to sell potato chips in the UK market, then he must be having properly graded, standardized produce. And sometimes backward linkage becomes essential. Say, for example, in Uttar Pradesh is the largest potato producing state, but the potato germplasm is not suitable for value-added products. So sometimes backward integration becomes necessary, that the corporates which would be selling or buying or would be doing value addition may have to provide the farmers the new germplasm which may suit to the production. And a population of India, 135 crore, is almost equal to 76 countries of entire Europe and entire Latin America. And therefore, any stage managed show cannot be managed that we have, if we could be having 1 crore population, that could be done. And therefore, I think some market play has to be allowed, because you cannot have a stage managed show for almost 65 crore farmers and 135 crore consumers. And therefore, some free play has to be allowed. The corporate entities have also to be allowed for branding, marketing, grading, standardizing the produce. At the same time, small agri-tech startups should also be there. They would also be doing a lot of value addition, lot of market intervention, and at the same time, farmer producer organization. So you cannot have one monolith, but you have to go for all kind of freedom. One thing I want to make clear, that China is having 3 times more area than India, but has just half the agriculture land. So actually, India is blessed with the largest arable area, and that is why we have that blessing. And another most important thing is that we have to allow free market factors to some extent, so that prices would also get stabilized, and we would have a steady state, or we can say that demand and supply would adjust according to, and farmer would also produce according to the needs. And for a smaller farmer, it is not possible to have an agri startup or something like that. So he has to be dependent whether on some corporate entity, cooperative entity, or FPO, or anything. And in a vast country like India, you have to allow free market forces.
Before I move on to Dr. JP Sharma, one more question for you, Professor Bhagwati ji. This is that in current, and this is an audience question, that in current farm bills, what are the checks and balances in place to avoid any form of exploitation of farmers? Are there any? And if there are, what are they?
Actually, what happens for checks and balances is already mentioned, that now if there is a crop failure, if the corporates do not honor the commitment with the farmer which they have signed the contract, he will not have to go to the long process of the court. But since the local administration would be having the power, and normally in case of local administration, they cannot annoy a wide population of farmers. So biggest, I think, the safeguard is that one. And another important thing which I do feel is if a farmer is free to sell his produce anywhere, why should we shackle the farmer? So therefore, this is unshackling the farmer to sell his produce, and for redressal of his grievance, he will not have to go to the long process of courts, but he can do. And therefore, what do I feel? That actually these farm bills would certainly augment the farm sector incomes, at the same time would also enhance agri-produce value additions. And the opposition is, what do I feel, is, as Dinesh ji has very well identified, that it is because India has been successful in dismantling the Article 370, Ram Mandir, and all these, and therefore the forces which are opposed to the present regime for these issues, they cannot just agitate on those issues, and that's why they have just hijacked this various political parties who are just against the present regime. They have just aligned, and they are trying. So I think this agitation should be interpreted in that light.
Thank you, Professor Sharma. Now I'll ask Dr. JP Sharma. Sir, we know that it's a fact that 86% of agricultural land holdings belong to the marginal and small farmers. And I come from a family of small farmers. They own agricultural land in Jammu district. And my farms have just produced around 600 kgs of urad dal. But this is also a fact that nobody in my family, the newer generation, is into farming solely because the income is just not enough to support the family. So clearly, there needs to be some change. And here I quote that when asked about the farmers' protest, Krishnamurthy Subramaniam, India's chief economic advisor, he said, reforms in a democracy like India typically pits a vocal minority of the kind that you're seeing vis-a-vis a silent majority. The silent majority is the one that benefits from reforms. So do these bills benefit the small farmers who constitute the larger and probably the more suffering majority? You'll have to unmute, sir. Dr. JP Sharma.
Actually, this bill is highly beneficial for small and marginal farmers because the large farmers, they can afford to grow for rice, wheat.
Can you hear me, Dr. JP Sharma? I think we've lost the connection. Dr. JP Sharma, can you hear us? I can maybe come back to you with this question and I can move on to the next one. By the time you come back and connect, you might be connecting on 2G if you're in Jammu. Dineshji, I'll ask you the next question till we have Dr. JP Sharma back. Again, as people who are looking from the outside, these are some of the statistics that we see that, you know, as many as 10,281 suicides were reported in the farming sector in 2019, out of which 58% were farmers or cultivators, and then 4,324 were agricultural laborers. And we've seen that the highest suicide rates are in Maharashtra, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, and Chhattisgarh. So this is despite the fact that according to FCI's latest data, Madhya Pradesh became the largest contributor to the central pool with 12.93 million tons of wheat, surpassing Punjab, which procured 12.71 million tons. So does this data point towards an undeniable need for urgent reforms in the agri sector? Can we establish that there is definitely a need for reforms?
Certainly, the reforms should be there, but that in tune with the small farmers. Because now what we are discussing earlier, these 86% of the farmers are the very small and marginal farmers all over in India. And they are not having the much surplus to sell and go to the big markets. So they need to sell their very small surplus within a period of a time for the next crop. So for that, it is needed to get that type of the infrastructure nearby their village. And that's why these type of the reforms needed, but with the certain conditions. When they are having the very small surplus, there are so many chances for the exploitation of them, because they are not having that type of the capacity to hold that one. That's why they are going to sell at distress sale in the local markets. And we have to control that things that is necessary. That's why what you are talking about, the suicide rates in the Maharashtra as well as in the Chhattisgarh and other states, particularly in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, all these suicides are happened due to there is a huge difference between the cost of production and what they are getting the price of their produce. So that is the big difference. So we have to assure them at least they get the cost of production for them. So that type of some assurance should be there. How it can be given, that can be debatable, that can be in the discussion. So there is so many various things we have to do for that. Just like I will give one example. See, all over world, the huge subsidies are given by that governments to their farmers. Just I will give one example. Japan like country is giving $37.6 billion subsidy annually to their farmers. And in our India, we are getting only 11 point something billion dollars. So this is the huge difference is there. And due to that subsidy, the world prices are suppressed and they are able to sell their produce at the lower rates than our rates. So we have to bring some level field for that also. And what point was mentioned by Guru Charanji, so there should be the verification or the statutory mechanism to declare the MSP. If that type of the mechanism is there, then we can control all these things. Unnecessarily, so many things are happening in India. Just like I will quote one example. We are net importing the edible oil. Near about the 70,000 crore rupees net edible oil we are importing, and we are not giving the MSP to our farmers for the government. So this is the irony we can see here. To overcome all these things, reform should be there, but with some safeguards should be there. That's all.
Dr. JP Sharma, would you like to continue? You were answering. Just if you could unmute yourself. We were talking about the benefits to the small and marginal farmers.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Are you able to?
Ji, we can hear you.
Yes. So I was just telling that this bill is most suitable for the small farmers, because the big farmers can afford to go for the kind of crop they are growing, wheat and rice, and they can survive. But one farmer having a small piece of land, maybe 1 acre or half an acre, if they go for this kind of crops, they cannot survive their family. So there is a need for diversification and to see the agriculture as a agri-business entity. But for them, if they cannot take risk unless they have the surety that there is a person who has to buy their product. I gave you one example how the income can be made 4 times, 5 times. In Bhadarwa, you must be knowing, in Jammu region, one farmer, Bharat Bhushan, he is growing lavender and extracting oil, and he is earning 4 lakhs rupees from 1 acre of land. Another farmer, Dunda Singh, turmeric, and he is processing and marketing. He is from Kathua. But the small farmer having one Chamanlal farmer from, but for them, if they product. I gave you one example, must be knowing, in Jammu region, one farmer, Bharat Bhushan, he is growing lavender and extracting. These are the few examples. But if we want to make the people to come into that category, we have to mobilize them in for group actions. So one action at the part of government is farmer producer organization, which I have already mentioned. 10,000 farmer producer organization government is setting up in next 5 years. Under that, in place, 300 farmers has to be mobilized. They can form their own group. There is a legislation, and government will help them, give them 18 lakhs rupees for formation of that group, and the university or the institution who is helping them, they will also getting 25 lakhs rupees. So that kind of thing, which Gurcharan Singh Gill Sahab was also telling that 10-kilometer periphery there should be processing center. So, and then another concept has come: one district, one commodity. Means if we have this mushroom has been declared as Samba district has been declared as mushroom district, Kathua district has been declared as spice district. So under that, all the farmers together their product, and it will be processed, branded, and sent to different part of the country, even exported. So a small farmer also having a small piece of land can go for diversification through this mechanism. Another provision under the contact farming, which I have already told, that if they are having a company or the industry who is going to buy their product, process them and market them, then they will go for diversification. And I want to again emphasize marketing. I went to Kiswar and Badarba. Farmers are selling their honey in 100 rupees and somewhere 150 rupees. When it comes to multinational company, changes the packet, it becomes 450. And when we say organic honey, it becomes 800. In Delhi market, I have seen a honey brand, organic honey from Jammu and Kashmir. Now you see, farmer of Jammu and Kashmir is getting 150 rupees. In the name of Jammu and Kashmir honey, it is 1100 rupees. But if that mechanism go with the farmers, that they can have a bargaining with the kind of company that okay, we will sell our produce at 400 rupees, 500 rupees, it will just double and triple their incomes. So I think farmer Bharat Bhushan, he likes rupees from 1 acre of land from Kathua. So similarly, he is going lemongrass. These are the few examples, especially this is a boon for the small farmers.
Thank you, Dr. J.P. Sharma.
Just to be mobilized, they can lakhs rupees for formation with that kind of thing.
I think your audio is not very good, so there's a lag and disturbance.
Different part exported. So a small farmer.
Sorry, Dr. J.P. Sharma, your audio was at.
And when we say organic honey from Jammu and Kashmir, 150 rupees in the name. It is not clear to the farmers that they can produce at 400 rupees, 500 rupees.
Dr. J.P. Sharma, yeah, your audio connection was hello, Dr. J.P. Sharma, your audio connection was a little bad right at the end, but we did hear what you were saying about the honey, how it's being sold at 1100 in Delhi, but the farmer in Bhadarwa is just getting maybe 100 or 150. So yes. We did hear that. So there is this question from the audience, which I will leave for any one of you to answer, which is that if these laws are beneficial to farmers, why are there no large-scale gatherings from farmers to support the farm laws? So we are seeing a lot of protests against the farm laws, but why have we not seen support by farmers for, who say that, yes, we agree with these laws, or we just need a few amendments? Why has there been no such gathering? Anybody can answer, Dinesh ji or anyone.
Dinesh ji would be the most appropriate person because he is having the overall scenario of the farmers at his fingertips.
Ji, Dinesh ji.
It is a very good question asked by this because in what situation and what conditions all these laws came, that is debatable actually. And the things are that in Hindi there is one proverb is there, bhais pani mein hai, means the buffalo is in water, so we do not know whether it is giving good milk or not. When after the implementation of these laws for 2 years, then and then only we come to know about the benefits or the losses of this or the backdraws of these farm acts. That's why the farmers are not coming forward so much. And these farmers who are coming from the Punjab and Haryana, they are basically provoked by their artiyas and their political leaders from there. They were somewhat misinformed about all these things. And that's why they came to the Delhi. And when we are talking about the information or the literacy regarding this act, the most of the farmers, they do not know what is in that act. They do not know the facts and figures regarding this act. And that's why these, whether this is agitating farmers or those farmers are silent, they do not know about this. Bharatiya Kisan Sangh is trying to educate them since when this ordinance were promulgated. And that's why, due to the lack of the information, these type of the things are happening there.
Thank you, Dineshji. There is this.
I would also supplement almost around 10 farmers organizations. They are in liaison with the ministers also. So they are also in favor of the bill. So there are, but they are not that much vocal, and no political outfit is organizing them. Because normally it happens that a farmer or a common man becomes unorganized. So nobody is taking a lead to just align all of them. Otherwise, there are many farmer groups from leaving Punjab or Haryana from across the country. They are in favor of the bills also.
There is this one question related to MSP. I'm not sure you will be able to tell me whether it's correct or it's not correct, but in Punjab and Haryana, for instance, 75% of the procurement is done by the government. So much so that large farmers in these states are incentivized to grow certain crops against others. And this has led to monocropping, especially in Punjab, resulting in severe soil degradation and a lot of use of fertilizers, and hence cancer train runs there. And there has been many issues. So is this because of MSP, and also because of this, there is a lot of grain just sitting and rotting, and there's a lot of food wastage? Anybody if would want to answer this? Dr. J.P. Sharma? Ji.
In fact, in Punjab, this rice wheat crop system is prevalent. And I want to tell that to produce 1 kg, 1 kg of, hello?
We can hear you, Dr. Sharma.
Okay. So I was just telling, to produce 1 kg of paddy, we need to spend some 3,000 liters of water. And because of this, every year, farmer is spending 50,000 of rupees to lower the motor of their tube well. And what has happened during this system, rice wheat, that there is a hard pan has been developed in the soil, and there is a problem of salinity in the whole Punjab area. This is one thing. And because of that, the government has brought a legislation. Earlier, the farmers were taking 2 crops of paddy. So now, to discourage this paddy cultivation, government has brought up a legislation that no farmer can transplant their paddy before 10th of June. And it is to discourage only so that they should take only 1 crop of paddy, because it really proudly say that we have exported this much of paddy to different countries. Have we taken even the water cost into consideration? To produce 1 kg of paddy, it requires 3,000 to 5,000 liters of water. So lot of problem of salinity and other things are coming up because of this mono kind of culture, rice wheat of this thing.
Ji. Gurcharan ji,
I'll
maybe
just
you would
add
Yes,
one
sir.
point, that it
Yes,
is
sir.
the guarantee to the farmer that he would be getting the MSP and there would be procurement. And that is why they are going for monocropping and all these things. And now these 3 bills, when there would be a freedom, so I think farmers would be going for diversification of the crops automatically. So this would be, I think, a beneficial impact.
I want to add this one. When we are demanding for this MSP's legalization, this will also help to solve this problem. Because when we were deficiting in the pulses at that time, there was the government procurement in that year, our farmers responded very nicely, and they transferred they diversified their crop for the pulses. So that can be happen. If you are giving this type of the MSP for 1 or 2 crops in 1 or 2 states only, this will happen. After the Green Revolution, there was the only focus on this two states for the production of the wheat and the rice. And there was the 100% procurement from these areas. And this is the total policy was the one-sided policy. And they are procuring this wheat or the rice from the Punjab and they are supplying to the Kerala. So this is the too much one-sided policy, and thanks to this policy, this type of the situation is arrived here. So when we are thinking into the total integration, when we are talking about the MSP should be given to each and every, what declared today the 23 crops. If that policy is there, then there should be the definitely balancing regarding this type of the cropping system. And today that what imbalance is there, that can be corrected due to this one. Not only the enacting the laws, you do not grow the wheat and all that things, that will not help. What is happening with that, the parali, the same thing is behind it. Because there is a, not only in this area, but if you go into the Telangana like area, they are also using the groundwater to produce this rice. So this will, this type of the policies create such imbalances. So we have to correct the policies from the root. And there should be the holistic approach regarding the whole agriculture is required.
Thank you. I'm very conscious of the time, and I'll just tell the audience who are with us that we will just take a couple of more questions before we end. Gurcharanji, if you would like to come in on this one, that there have been so many rounds of talks between the government and the farmers. Almost 11 rounds of talks have happened. Supreme Court also, we appreciate their sentiment to mediate and to break this stalemate and has suggested something. But there has been a call for a complete revocation of this. So what is your view on this?
As per the repealing of this law is concerned, it will not be appropriate and it will not solve the issue in favor of the farmers. In fact, there are so many very good things and have the salient feature in the act that which have been referred by my panelist. So I need not to report, but my question to my mind also, because before passing this bill, there was a need, because these are the revolutionary reformatory law. For reformatory laws or reformatory provisions or the policy, first we should make the environment and teach and educate the persons for whose benefits we are going to put all these laws. In this, what is lacking in this matter, government sudden came to that first they promulgated the bills, later on they put in the parliament and passed the law. So due to this confusion, farmers could not understand what is in their benefit. Even now, the ball, as Mr. Kulkarni have told, now the ball is in the other hands. They are playing according to their own designs. And need not to refer that there are certain persons who are not interested to resolve the issues, but they want that the issue should remain existing, so that unrest should be in the mind of the common man, which will be go against the government or even the nation itself also. So for that reason, otherwise there is a certain between as far certain objections are concerned, as I referred already, that there should be certain amendments should be made. As for the MSP is concerned, as I've already said, at present, what does it connotes MSP? FCI should purchase wheat and such and such crops on such and such rate. My submission to it is MSP means when a body decides the rate of certain crops, why any person, any trader should be bound that he should not purchase this crop below to MSP. It should be assured, but only Punjab and Haryana are getting a benefit of MSP for the reason that the FCI purchase wheat and paddy from the farmers. But what about the Rajasthan? What about the Madhya Pradesh? And what about the Bihar, etc.? Madhya Pradesh is producing a lot of wheat, but they are not getting the MSP. What for the reason? Because FCI not purchasing. My question: why any purchaser, any trader, any consumer who purchase the wheat or the paddy should not purchase that crop lower than the MSP? For example, the Rajasthan is concerned where there the according to government, Bajra is usually sown in the Rajasthan, and cost of sowing 1 quintal Bajra is 1500. MSPs should be double, that should be 2250, but MSP 22,150. But actually, what is being in the market? Only 12 or 1300 is the rate of the Bajra. So my question is, why it should not be sure that Bajra should be not be purchased lower than the MSP declared by the government itself? So this is the question. All these confusions are as per the MSP concerned. That is not the question of the now is in the this movement is not of the Punjab or Haryana only, and the question is not of the purchasing of the crop by the FCI only. They are asking and demanding that MSP should be assured, and their production, their produce should not be purchased lower to MSP. For that is the reason behind it.
Before I end with the last question, or rather your 1 minute comment on what is the way forward, I am just checking. We have Gurpreet Singh ji, who has joined us from Bhatinda. He's a farmer and advocate. If he's still with us, if he can put his camera and mic on, we would like to hear his views. Gurpreet Singh ji, are you still with us? I can see him here. Yes.
जी
Ji. Ji, namaste.
नमस्ते जी
Ji, there are lots of people who want to know कि in Punjab, what are the farmers feeling? Why are they on the roads? Are these bills not going to benefit them? If you can give your view on that.
मेरे को हिंदी में बोलना पड़ेगा कि
हाँ
मेरे को
जी,
इंग्लिश
कोई
में
बात
थोड़ा हाथ
नहीं, कोई
और
आप हिंदी में बोलें.
तो सभी सज्जनों ने मेरे से काफी वरिष्ठ लोग यहाँ पे जुड़े हुए हैं. उन्होंने काफी अच्छी बातें रखी हैं. दिनेश जी, भगवती प्रकाश जी, जेपी शर्मा जी और गुरचरण सिंह जी गिल. तो ये जो एंड में बात गुरचरण सिंह जी गिल ने कही है कि पहले थोड़ा सा इसको माहौल बन जाता तो ये और भी बढ़िया रहता कि माहौल ना बनने हम मतलब उनकी भलाई के लिए काम कर रहे थे. तो वो जब उसको हाइप देनी थी और वो उनका माहौल बनाना था, वो यहाँ पे जो पंजाब है या हरियाणा है या जो भी कंसर्निंग एरियाज है, तो वो माहौल अगर पहले बन जाता तो पहले कुछ ओपन डिबेट्स जैसे कि नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी पे आज सभी लोग ऐसे कर रहे हैं, अभी वो उसका मसौदा तैयार है, उसको लागू करना. उससे पहले काफी डिबेट्स में से वो गुजरा और एक लंबे प्रोसीजर में से गुजरा. तो उसके रिजल्ट आगे आने वाले मेरे को ऐसी आशा है कि बढ़िया रहेंगे. द सेम इज द केस विद द ये जो है कृषि बिल लाए गए हैं. तो माहौल का एक था. तो यहाँ पे वो क्या हुआ कि जो ग्राउंड पे जो सिचुएशन थी, तो पहले ही यहाँ पे जो एजिटेटिंग माहौल पहले ही रहता है, तो उसको उन्होंने उस तरफ मतलब मोटिवेट कर दिया. और उसके पीछे कुछ और भी कारण रहे हैं, मैं वो फैक्ट में नहीं जाऊंगा, आप सभी लोग उसमें वाकिफ हैं. तो उसको वो नेशन वाइज उसको बिल्डअप किया गया यहाँ पंजाब की तरफ से. तो ये जहाँ पे मैं रहता हूँ यहाँ बठिंडा में, तो ये लेफ्टिस्ट का काफी गढ़ रहा. ये बठिंडा मानसा एरिया, ये डिस्ट्रिक्ट है. तो इसको यहीं से ही तकरीबन है ना, ये पंजाब के एरिए से लेफ्टिस्ट जो लोग हैं वो पहले ही इस किसान यूनियन के माध्यम से, सभी नहीं मैं बोल रहा, कुछ हैं, सभी नहीं, तो उन्होंने इसको ऐसे मोटिवेट किया कि ये इसके अगेंस्ट लाकर खड़ा कर दिया. वहाँ पे मतलब दिल्ली के दरवाजे पे खड़े हैं. तो इसमें कुछ जो फॉरेन के या दूसरे देशों में से जो कुछ हार्डकोर लोग हैं जो पहले वहाँ पे गए हुए हैं, उन्होंने भी इसको फंडिंग के, अब ज़्यादा ये सारा काम फंडिंग के ऊपर ही, जैसे मेरे को समझ में आता है निजी रूप में, ये मेरे अपने विचार हैं, तो फंडिंग के ऊपर भी टिका हुआ है. तो इसको ज़्यादा जो कर रहे हैं वो लेफ्टिस्ट हैं. और उन्होंने उनका एक अपना एजेंडा चला हुआ है, और जो फॉरेन से फंडिंग हो रही है उनका एक अपना एजेंडा है। वो 2020 वाला केस शायद मेरे को लगता है 2021 में खेलना चाहते हैं, ऐसा मेरा मानना है। जी धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू गुरप्रीत सिंह जी, आप इतनी देर बने रहे हमारे साथ, उसके लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मैं सिर्फ jaldi se last mein I'm going to ask all the speakers that if you can sum up in 1 minute that what is the way forward. We know that government offered that we will defer this for 18 months. That is also surprising because they haven't said the same thing for the other high profile bills that they brought in, but they said for this particular one, they offered that while negotiating. So in 1 minute, if you could sum up that what is the way forward, what should be the next steps? Because it does seem that reforms are much needed. So we'll go in the same order. Professor Bhagwati Sharma ji, if we start with you, 1 minute each. Sir, unmute kar lijiye. You need to unmute.
I think a campaign has to be launched to educate the farmers and groups. And in the rural areas, even women folk, because they are back home, they should also be convinced. And some in village specific or some block specific, some educational campaign should be launched with the proper PowerPoint presentation. What would be the scenario after these bills? Actually, this has not been properly articulated with empirical projections and future scenario and future scan. So I think they should take the help of all these modern things, and the scenario should be built that what would be the farm sector after these bills, maybe after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, some projections should be made.
Thank you. Dr. JP Sharma, your views?
When any resistance. And one other dimension of this bill has been that there are 3 categories of mandi fees. One category, there are 9 states where mandi fees is only 0 to 1%. There are some other states where mandi fees is 2%. And Haryana and Punjab, mandi fees is highest. In Punjab, it is 8.5% highest. And it is perhaps 5,000 crores rupees is taken as a mandi fees. So it is not the question of only the farmers. It is also related to adatiyas or dictators. In that context, our farmers need to be made aware. And what Kulkarni also suggested, whatever possible corrections we can make to satisfy. Ultimately, we are doing it for the benefit of the farmers, and we should satisfy their aspirations, their needs, and awareness programs to educate them should be taken up at different levels.
Thank you, Dr. JP Sharma. Dinesh ji, your concluding remarks?
It is obvious that the Indian farmers are not getting the remunerative prices for their produce. That is a well-known fact, and now each and every citizen of country is now aware about that. They are not getting that remunerative prices. So for this type of the reforms are required. That is definite, because not only one agency can deal with all these things. Only APMC or only government or private traders. These type of the 3 factors should be in the market. And for that, now government come forward for the suspension of these acts for 1.5 years, and government is ready to form a comprehensive committee for this. So we farmers organization should take this opportunity and have the discussion in a good faith with the government. Government is now ready to discuss with all issues, and we have to take that opportunity. And not only this market, but the whole as agriculture as a whole, we have to resolve all these issues. That is a good opportunity before us, and we have to take it.
Thank you, Dinesh ji. Gurcharan ji, your concluding remarks.
It is a welcome step on the part of the government to suspend its acts and provide an opportunity to the farmer to understand what are the beneficiary things in the country, how the farmer to get the benefit of all the enactments, and even they will be provided an opportunity, what are their doubts and how doubts can be removed and what can be in addition to add to these bills. This will apply to the farmers as well to the government also. They are trying to improve the income of the farmers double with all these policies, not by X policy, but all the some Samarth or Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme or FPOs, etc. and all these things. So what will be horticulture and herbal cultivation, etc. This government may easily put their thought in the mind of the farmers, a common man, and it is very good and welcoming step on the part of the government.
Thank you. I would conclude, I guess, that definitely the takeaway points are that the will of the government is appreciable. They're trying to bring in reforms which will benefit all farmers. And we have established that the reforms are much needed. And this is a good opportunity that in good faith, the discussions between the government and the farmers continue with an open-mindedness so that the agricultural sector, the kind of changes it needs, that can be initiated and that can be implemented. So on behalf of FICCI UK, I thank all my knowledgeable speakers. We've learned a lot from you today. You've stayed on for a very long time. It is night in India. We really appreciate it. So thank you very, very much. Dhanyavad.